Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are really tearing up the script on public safety. We're not talking about, lighter sentences or heavier policing, not that at all. We are talking about something completely different. Gold, advanced AI, and the power of public honor. Our sources detail this really bold pilot program happening down in the Yucatán Peninsula. It's a massive social and tech overhaul they've called the Open Carry Golden Bullet Protocol, often just the Peninsula Protocol. And this isn't some small tweak. It feels like a systematic attempt to redefine, well, everything. The citizen, the tool, the community.
Right, and our mission today is to take this document. It's fascinating, really. It reads less like standard reporting and more like a detailed design blueprint. They call it a techno-parable and policy pitch. So we need to unpack that, meticulously examine how they've set up the civic defense system, and then, this is the really interesting bit, how they pivoted using the exact same structure for wildlife conservation. We're analyzing the blueprint, the claims, pretty impartially, just looking at what it's designed to do.
Okay, let's get into that blueprint. Starting with the core hardware. The sources say it's built around the ceremonial-grade defensive firearm, issued to basically every resident, men, women, even children. But the critical piece, it seems, isn't the gun, it's the ammo. Traceable, low-velocity golden bullets.
Yeah, the gold is, it's a very calculated choice. It's not just for show, although the ceremony part is important.
Yeah.
See, gold's density gives the round enough weight, enough kinetic force to be a deterrent. But crucially, gold is soft. Much softer than, say, steel, so that dramatically reduces the chance of a lethal outcome. The phrase they use is deterrent, not death.
Okay, so it's about stopping someone, making the threat real, but minimizing the permanent harm.
Exactly. And the second big thing gold does is traceability. These aren't just lumps of gold. Each round is apparently tagged digitally right down at the molecular level. And on impact, it's designed to fragment into this trackable dust. Little tiny fragments that integrated security drones can see, meaning every single shot fired, even accidentally, leaves this undeniable, identifiable record. Anonymity. Gone. Instantly.
And that traceability, that instant record, ties straight into the tech overlay, right? You said the sources call them IoT-augmented civic tools, not just guns. What does that IoT part actually do beyond tracking?
Well, the IoT connectivity means the tool is always linked to the civic mesh network. It's less a weapon, more like a node. And that enables a few key things. Instant biometric recognition, it knows who's holding it, continuous self-checks, and that instant drone response you mentioned. A drone is literally airborne the moment the weapon leaves its holster. Logging location, status, everything.
Okay, and the communication layer, that sounds pretty wild. It has an integrated LLM, a large language model, for translation and tone analysis during a fight.
Yeah, real-time translation, which is useful in diverse areas. But the tone analysis is the stranger part.
Hold on. The weapon has a de-escalation speaker. It talks before the person can shout. That sounds incredibly futuristic, maybe even infuriating if you're genuinely scared and trying to defend yourself.
It's the ultimate techno-nanny, you could say. And that seems to be the point. The designers claim it's an attempt to bypass that panic response, the amygdala hijack. The LLM, this AI language brain, analyzes the voices, the stress levels, and injects a calm, rational voice into the chaos. It basically forces a mediated interaction, whether you like it or not.
Which leads to the social angle. They even issue a child's version. Non-lethal, mini-caliber. Seems odd, training kids young. But you mentioned this ritualized civic choreography.
Right. It's definitely not about building a kid militia. That's not the idea. It's framed as training in digital situational ethics. The tool is a teaching aid. By using this visible, controlled, highly mediated device from a young age, the hope is they internalize the protocol. Instant logging, non-lethal first. The accountability that comes with everything being witnessed. It tries to turn the tool itself into a kind of shared civic vow.
Okay, that vow idea brings us to the next part, this unique reward system. Honor before force. How do they actually incentivize, well, being both lawful and defensive, but not reckless?
The incentive is reputation, pure and simple, but backed by something tangible. Residents who show really good conduct, especially using the system to de-escalate or helping someone unarmed without firing a shot, they get publicly honored every year with actual gold medals.
Real gold, so it mirrors the bullet in a way, a valuable medal for valuable conduct.
Exactly. But the real value isn't just the medal, it's the public memory. These specific, successful, measured defenses, they call them golden acts of defense, are immortalized. Archived in secure networks, shown in holographic displays sometimes, it gives you a lasting, verifiable reputation for civic virtue. Reckless use, even if it's technically legal. Zero honor points. Nothing. The system's engineered so public reputation becomes way more valuable than, say, getting revenge or that adrenaline rush.
And the claimed results, according to these design docs, they sound pretty dramatic. Crimes that rely on anonymity extortion, home invasions, paramilitary stuff reportedly dropped almost to zero in the pilot areas.
Well, the designers point to two big deterrents, one economic, one psychological. First, the economics just flip. Every single golden bullet with all its tech costs way more than whatever loot a typical thief might grab. Firing it literally costs more than the potential reward. That kills the profit motive. Second, and this is probably the bigger factor, every incident becomes a live, recorded, legally binding public event. When crime can't hide in the shadows anymore, its whole operational model just kind of collapses.
Right, that lack of obscurity and the reduced threat of chaos
Yeah.
apparently led to this big economic shift. Money that communities used to pour into private security, guards, walls, dogs, that's freed up. And it gets reinvested into public infrastructure. Can you give some examples? Like, what are they actually building with that money?
The sources suggest that in some smaller places, the money saved on security was equal to their old education or health budgets, significant amounts. And that capital funds next-gen stuff, rapid deployment drone ambulances, lifting wounded people straight to floating emergency clinics, and these high-tech, hyperfocal AI forensic labs. And those labs are key. They're not doing slow, old-school analysis. They process the huge amount of real-time data from every incident, drone video, LLM transcripts, biometrics, that bullet does, allowing for immediate legal and policy review. The system is accountable to its own data almost instantly.
So, connecting the dots. Philosophically, it feels like the protocol tries to sidestep the usual gun control versus gun rights stalemate. By tying the tool itself to accountability, to honor, and tech that forces de-escalation, they claim it becomes an instrument of moral clarity. Its transparency is its virtue. Okay, that covers the civic defense side. But then, as you said, there's this massive pivot, the Wild Edition, or MK2. They take this incredibly complex civic tool and recode it, turn it into a wildlife steward. The gun gets repurposed not for hunting, but for housekeeping the biosphere. That sounds strange.
It's a huge conceptual leap, yeah. The same platform tracking muggers now tracks jaguars, which meant a total rethink of the ammunition. The gold bullets are out, replaced by these dissolving trace rounds for ecological use. So these new rounds, they fragment on impact into biocompatible nanotags, tiny things. They broadcast species IDs to the drone network, letting biologists build real-time population maps. And crucially, the tags just biodegrade quickly, so it's non-invasive, no pollution. It's a way to survey the big animals, jaguars, crocs, howler monkeys, without ever needing to capture or collar them.
Okay, makes sense for mapping. But what about encounters? If a resident meets one of these animals, the focus stays non-lethal. The MK2 system includes something called dragon flare rounds. These are bright, wide-spectrum, non-toxic flares designed purely to startle and redirect a predator, no injury. And they still have microtags to log the animal's position and its stress response during the flare.
Right, and this is where local knowledge becomes absolutely critical. The other non-lethal tool is the animal language speaker. It's this layered sound module emitting species-specific deterrent patterns, tones, rhythms, carefully checked and verified by local biologists, and, importantly, indigenous elders who know the animal's behavior. And the mandate is clear: prevent chronic stress. It's not about just scaring animals away constantly. It's about a gentle nudge, redirecting movement right then and there, using sounds that are unpleasant neurologically but not physically harmful. And it's all continuously monitored to make sure, migration routes aren't being messed up.
And managing all this tracking and nudging is the Yucatán Trusted Hands Network. Sounds like a community watch for the jungle.
Sort of, yeah. It's a distributed network. Local guardians, neutral drone pilots, scientists, elders, all connected. And the impact on poaching is supposedly profound, because the whole ecosystem is being mapped in real time with traceable markers on animals. Poaching becomes, as they put it, logistically and reputationally expensive. You can't just sneak a tracked animal out of the forest without the whole network knowing. Plus, that reliable map data opens up ethical ecotourism, creating real stewardship jobs for local people.
There has to be a last resort, right? What about actual lethal force against an animal or even a person in extreme cases? Does that ability still exist? Yes, it does, but under very tight constraints. They use smart last resort rounds. These rounds are heavily encrypted, track everything via telemetry, but the real lock is structural. To actually deploy one lethally requires multi-party biometric concurrence.
This is like the ultimate philosophical failsafe of the system. It means no single person, their fingerprint, their eye scan, their voice is enough. To authorize lethal force, the system demands agreement from multiple points. A local witness needs to provide their biometric ID. The central drone hub has to log authorization. A legal protocol officer has to sign off, all at the same time. The policy is crystal clear. No single person can decide to use lethal force alone. That moment must be witnessed and consented to by the machine and the community together.
Wow. Okay. Given all that complexity, the sources themselves stress skepticism, right? This is a blueprint, not necessarily reality yet. We need to ask the tough questions. And the biggest danger they flag themselves is mission creep, isn't it? Conservation tech, especially real-time mapping that could easily be repurposed. Maps of jaguar movements are also maps of human movements, maybe illegal movements.
Absolutely. That's the core risk. The documents insist on needing guardrails to prevent that. Things like strict purpose limitation. The tech only does what it says it does. Mandatory expiration dates on tracking features so they can't just stay active forever. And required independent audits, not by the government, but by separate ecology councils, to watch for function creep and potential abuse.
And what about the ethical lines they draw, the absolute non-negotiables to keep it honest?
Well, first is data sovereignty. The local communities and the conservation groups own the data generated, not some central authority, not a corporation.
Yeah.
Second, animal welfare. Those sonic deterrents. They need constant vetting. You can't just blast sounds without checking if it's causing chronic stress or messing up migration. Continuous biological monitoring is mandatory, and as we covered, that multi-signature biometric release for any lethal round, that's absolutely non-negotiable.
So with all this, how do they actually measure success? It sounds so complex. Is this protocol a blessing or just a bluff? What are the specific metrics in the pilot phase?
The metrics are very specific,
Yeah.
way beyond just crime stats. They track the non-lethal incident. The idea is that should go down as people get better at de-escalation. They track something called wildlife contact fidelity.
Wait, rewind. Wildlife contact fidelity. What does that actually mean? What are they measuring?
It's basically the system's accuracy score for identifying wildlife. If the system tags something as a crocodile, how certain are they it is a croc and not, a floating log? It ensures the sensors are reliable and not just crying wolf, which would erode trust. They also monitor animal stress indicators using cortisol proxies, things like that, to check the system isn't harming the animals it's studying. And finally, that community honor index. What percentage of civic honors are being awarded specifically for successful, verified de-escalations? That's a key social metric.
This has definitely been a deep dive. We've journeyed from a traceable golden bullet for defense through AI de-escalation, all the way to a biodegradable nanotag mapping jaguars in real time. The thread connecting it all seems to be this idea of the tool becoming an emissary, as they say, translated by elders, audited by neighbors, and checked by the forest itself.
Exactly. And what the source material really pushes, the provocative idea, is that tools perhaps only gain virtue when they're witnessed, when they're held accountable. So if everything recorded, audited, and publicly honored,
Right.
can you actually redesign social responsibility itself? What happens when your social machinery prioritizes total accountability, measurable virtue over the convenience of anonymity? That's really the question this Peninsula Protocol seems to be asking you, the listener, to think about.